Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the blues man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing the DC animated film Batman Under the Red Hood. Directed by Brandon Vietti and written by Judd Winnick, whose work I really enjoyed on the New 52 Catwoman. Featuring the voice talents of such actors as Bruce Greenwood, Jensen Ackles, John DiMaggio, Neil Patrick Harris, Jason Isaacs, and Wade Williams, among others. Let me preface this by saying I'm a longtime fan of the killing joke aspect of the Joker's history, his almost inadvertent posing as the alleged criminal mastermind, the Red Hood, which only ever really amounted to being a red herring, so to speak, in that low-level patsies were usually dolled up in the attire to make more lowbrow thuggery seem like more legit criminal masterwork. His run-in with an early in his career Batman leading to that penultimately life-changing, mind-breaking dip into a vat of acid, birthing the Clown Prince of Crime as he has more popularly come to be known today. Elements of this story serve largely as a prologue to the overall piece that is Under the Red Hood, but it is another story in particular that more closely segues into the main narrative of this film. That being the ill-fated story of Jason Todd, the second of the Dark Knight's partners to be called Robin, after Dick Grayson had flown the coop and become reborn under the moniker Nightwing. While I've yet to actually read the full Death in the Family arc, I've read about it many times, and always found it to be truly compelling in both its fictional and real-world values and ramifications. For those only loosely or entirely unfamiliar with this story, Under the Red Hood perfectly sets you up with all you need to know, or at the very least gives you the animated film equivalent of what you need to know going in. And that is that the Joker, in a fit of particular brutality, beat Jason Todd's Robin almost to death, and then blew him up to finish the job, which Batman was too late on the scene to do anything about. This movie is an examination of what such a loss has done to Bruce Wayne, as well as his alter ego. We see a man plagued with guilt over a failure that he considers to be no less than his single greatest, even when met with the aid and comfort of his old partner Dick, returned to Gotham after getting a tip about a new, curious foe making the rounds in his full-on Nightwing guise. Bruce is as distant and closed off as ever. He's a man who daren't let himself carry the responsibility of another's life ever again. And it's with well-laid honor that Dick is not so easily dismayed, and yet keeps at Bruce's side, whether he likes it or not, as the mysterious new benefactor going around under the guise the Red Hood presents a new line of enquiry for them both. Mob boss and well-known DC villain Black Mask serves as the primary target for this new crimson-domed outlaw, who seems to be one part vigilante, one part crime lord in his own right. But all of Red Hood's plans are just a means to an end, or to several ends as the case may be, the likes of which include calling out Batman, redirecting and controlling organized crime in Gotham City, and getting his hands on the Clown Prince himself, the Joker. The constant questions on Bruce's mind being, who is this person, and why are they doing what they're doing? All the while being led on a merry chase by the Red Hood and being continually outwitted by same. But perhaps it is the line of clues that are peppered throughout the story that reveals the true motives and intents of the Red Hood, for those who aren't already aware of his identity. If you're not familiar with that aspect of the story, I would say from here on is spoiler territory. If you'd like to actually watch the film without prior knowledge as to the Red Hood's identity, stop the video here and come back after you've finally seen it. If it doesn't concern you or you're already aware of the events as they conclude in this story, onward we go. As stated, the primary prologue of the film is the sequence which sees the Joker, whom we find out in the film was hired to become a distraction for Batman by the one, the only Ra's al Ghul himself, beat Jason Todd to death, leaving Batman to grieve his worst since the loss of his parents. But Red Hood's skills and words in their encounters suggest something Bruce doesn't want to contemplate. His former partner, thought dead, is very much alive, though not also entirely well. After a dialogue with Ra's al Ghul, the facts are set straight. Feeling a sense of personal responsibility, pride, and shame over the malady at the Joker's psychotic gloved hands, Ra's did steal away with Jason Todd's body, reviving it within the otherworldly Lazarus pit that has too served to preserve his own youth over many decades. This rebirth was marked with unexpected changes to Jason's outlook and actions, and yet were traits of his character already perceived by Bruce in their earlier relationship. It is a fact that he states to Alfred that he felt Jason had every capability of taking a dark turn, making the wrong choices without the right sort of guidance, and he set himself out to be that guardian, and, as he feels it to be, ultimately failed in that role. However misdirected Jason's or Red Hood's aspirations seem to be, however, it is his contention that he and Bruce are trying to do the same thing, put an end to crime in Gotham City. Only Jason believes he is capable of reaching beyond any such morals that he sees as weaknesses in Bruce's cowed vigilantism, the kind that prevents him from taking the lives of the same low-life scum murderers of innocence without a thought, offering up a fascinating dichotomy in philosophy between the two former partners. What becomes truly compelling, though, as Red Hood's plans lead the Joker out of his Arkham Asylum incarceration at the hands of fellow foe Black Mask, is the reasoning he confronts Bruce with as to his driving force behind all of the things he's done since returning from the grave. It wasn't some feeling of having been let down or betrayed by Bruce for his failure to save Jason's life, but more aggressively so that Bruce never lethally punished the Clown Prince for having taken it in the first place. Here we see Bruce at his most placating, trying to make Jason, Red Hood, understand that if he did kill, torture, and kill the Joker, he would never be able to return from those darkest depths, and would be in effect a monster just the same. And it is with great admiration on my part that we see Bruce willingly admit that in spite of his restraint, it isn't as though he hasn't thought about, fantasized about doing that very thing to the Joker. However, without wanting to further spoil the ending of the piece or any more of the intricate twists and turns that occur in it, the story, suffice to say, as well as this film, has become one of my favorites in the DC Animated Universe line. The action is much more well-placed as it pertains to the story, which has sometimes been an issue for some of the other films in the DCAU filmography. The characterization and narrative, of course, going through the necessary watering down, one supposes, which is true of any adaptation, yet for me personally was still no less riveting and compelling to watch. And as it relates to my earlier claim of being fascinated by this story, both within its fictional context as well as its real world, what I mean by that is, for those who don't know, Jason Todd's Robin was not all that popular amongst the fans of the day. So much so that DC Comics, perhaps erringly, set up a 900-number call line for people to vote on the outcome of Jason's beating by Joker, and the results were an overwhelming vote against his survival. Thus DC laid him to rest for a long time. He has since gone on to lead his own New 52 title, Red Hood and the Outlaws, which I reviewed and greatly enjoyed the first trade volume of, linked in the description below for your convenience if you're curious. But it has always been curious and fascinating to me that fans, real-world comic book readers, ultimately were responsible for Jason Todd's death, just as much as said death came to impact the Dark Knight's whole persona and psychology within the fictional context. I suppose stranger things have happened, but as a Batman fan and a man who's relatably suffered losses early on in life, the whole affair always had a notable significance and poignance to me. All of which I can say were thoroughly held up as equal parts intriguing as well as entertaining in this film adaptation of Batman Under the Red Hood. To rate it, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5, and otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this particular DCAU film, if you've seen it as yet, and if not, if you're going to check it out. Otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later.